Hello, and thank you for joining America's Warrior Partnership as we talk with veterans about their journey transitioning from military service to law enforcement. America's Warrior Partnership's mission is to partner with communities to end veteran suicide. We've put together a special fireside chat with law enforcement personnel who will share their experiences of finding purpose and continuing their service post-military. These conversations may have a tendency to bring up feelings and open old wounds. If you or someone you love are experiencing thoughts of harming themselves, please contact the Veteran Crisis Line by dialing 988 or texting 838-255. I encourage you to leverage resources as they are appropriate for you and know that you are not alone.
My block was one, a little bit of the stigma, and I'll get to stigma in a second, but I came out with all my fingers, toes, legs, arms. I have friends that don't. I know veterans that don't. So my thought at the time was, why am I going to go to the VA and ask for help? I'll deal with this. Obviously, I didn't deal with it the right way. But now that I see it, and throwing stigma to the side for a moment, my thoughts weren't based in reality. In fact, yeah, I did have my fingers, toes, legs, but sometimes when I go out, I'll teach mental health first aid. I start out, first thing I say is, if I drop right now holding my chest and I'm having a heart attack, what would you do? And I have officers raising their hands, and there's jokes, no one's doing mouth to mouth, but what would you do? And they're like, I grab the AED, I get the firefighters, I get, this. Well, if I had something that looked like a mental health emergency, what would you do? And you sometimes get a lot of blank stares. And then I said, so what's different between our heart, our arms or legs, and our mind? It's still a part of the body. And that's destroying that stigma part. Why are we looking at our minds any different than anything else? If I have high cholesterol, I'm taking medication, hopefully, to help that. If we have issues with mental health, some people do take meds, some don't, but we need to realize it's a chemical imbalance in our brain sometimes. Maybe it's therapy, maybe sometimes you do take medication. I have a lot of great officers that I know in this state that do take medication, and they need it. But they're phenomenal at their jobs, and they're resilient, and they're the ones that if I'm in trouble or we need to go do a mission or go on a warrant service or something, selfishly, sometimes I grab them because they're the veterans, and nothing against officers who aren't veterans, but sometimes I'm biased in that way. But we need to look past the stigma and understand, if we had a broken arm, we go get it fixed. Well, if our mind's not working perfectly, let's go get the help and get it fixed. You can still have a productive career. That's why I wanted to kind of throw that out there.
I'm glad you did, because my question was going to be, because y'all all brought it up, about reaching out and getting mental health services. And we do have a stigma still, it's getting better, but there's a stigma about mental health services, and there's a stigma about suicide, but also about feelings that may be leading to suicide, like that sense of hopelessness. I don't want to share with anybody of that because I may be thinking about harming myself. And I know that there's a stigma associated with that as well. What I've heard a lot of people say, particularly in jobs that you guys are currently in, is that they don't want to seek out that mental health treatment because it might cause them to be judged by other coworkers who are being tough, right? On the outside, they're acting tough, but on the inside, they're hurting just as much as maybe the person sitting next to them. Or they're concerned, if I go and get mental health treatment and I have a security clearance, or I have a high position within law enforcement, that if others think that I'm going and having mental health treatment, that I'm not going to be able to stay in this position, and might be criticized for that. Have any of you guys heard things like that, or was that a concern for you before you reached out for assistance?
My first time, I think it was 2006, my second deployment. I came back from Iraq, right? Yeah, Iraq. as I was having issues, we got a free going. There's a lot of firefighting, losing a lot of people. And I went and asked for help. I went to the clinic and I said, hey man, I need to talk to somebody. And said, all right. They said, what's your name? What's your round? What unit? I said, no, I just need to talk to somebody. I'm not giving you any of my information. And then, well, you can talk to the Army One source. I think that's what it was, and it was at the stigma. If I tell him if I give him my information, I would have never made it 6. I would have never gotten deployed or just got my paperwork. That's how I felt back then in 2005 and 6, So I just blew up and walked out of there. Hey, Sergeant, get back. I'm like, la, 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 la. So, and the reason why I did that instead of getting help is because they had this in the infantry, a paratrooper is not supposed to have feelings, you're a man, big cojones, you ain't got feelings, you ain't got time for that nonsense, and that's when I says that the failure of the leadership, making the young bucks understand that if you need help, you got to get it. There's not gonna be repercussions. But it feels that way. As the EOD with top secret, TSSCI, it's like, hey, you are there protecting the president, and you got mental issues. So sometimes a lot of EOD guys are like, the ones that start as an EOD, as they create as EOD, because they don't know, as EOD, they don't know the big army. It's a big difference being big army and EOD special forces. I'm telling you, people say it's not, oh yeah, it's a big difference, So they're not used to asking for help. It's like they show up, tough, badass infantry guy, that not his EOD, telling me, oh, you're not doing this, you're not doing that. So it is again, it falls onto the leadership, telling the young guys. I'm talking a lot about military career because my law enforcement is not as long as theirs are. That's the most experience that I have. But at the same time, I bring this to my sheriff's office. I bring this to the other deputies. We got 2 deputies that are retired veterans, but the other ones have been officers, and I can tell, they've been doing this for years, and I can tell, man, that was me just a few years back. Talk to me, what's going on? And they still don't talk, they don't open up because they're like, no, it's the same, mental, pain is all the same, okay? It don't happen, your buddies are not dropping dead, right next to you, but all the stuff that you see is still the same stuff that goes through your head and, stuff that you see. So that's what, a lot of, especially young soldiers and young officers, I think they don't want to talk about it, and somebody they're gonna make fun of them, their career is gonna be over. So that's what I went through. So
as for me, like I said, I, as for now, the command staff here, the ones that I mainly deal with on a day-to-day basis, they're aware of some of the things that took place when I was in the military. They know that I have my VA appointments that I attend pretty regularly, but as for I have plenty of support here, and we have a couple former Army military guys that it's also in the agency that I'm currently working in. And, a lot of times, I talk to them pretty regularly when I see them, even if I have to go out to the division that they're working in, just to check on them, to make sure they're all right. And, a lot of the guys I've been around for a while, and you can pretty much tell if something's going a little wrong. But most of the guys that are in the military, it's not many that have been in the military in the agency that I was in. The ones that have been in, I pretty much know them, and all of them, they're connected, with the VA or at out in our Army-based hospital here. But as for support from my agency and family, which is very important that you have support of your family when you're dealing with mental health issues. I've had nothing but tremendous support on that side.
Yeah, another thing, and I echo that command staff. Going out when I'm teaching classes or sharing my stories or anything along those lines, I always kind of direct it towards the chiefs, the deputies, and whatnot, and say, listen, at least in Massachusetts, you just didn't get hired as a chief. You came from somewhere. I will say, my chief, our deputy chiefs, and I would say it's a culture through our department, is very supportive. We've got officers that are social workers. In Framingham, we've had a co-response program. I got to say it's the first in the nation. Probably it started back in 2003, but we ride with clinicians. And I think that culture of our department, I was very lucky to transfer there in 2013, because I don't know if I would be talking like this if I was at my previous department. That's no slight on my previous department, but I just think that it's a culture at the Framingham Police that we're open, because if you can't recognize it in yourself and you're not supported by the command staff, which I believe we are wholeheartly, to mental health and whatnot, I don't think we're serving the community. So I think it's a hand in hand. Our knowledge of jail diversion and co-responding with a clinician, I think it's worked its way all the way up through the ranks to where our chief and deputies are, and I believe they're totally supportive. But for the departments that may not, or you feel that your department is not supportive, that's something that needs to be worked on, because our jobs as police, I always say that it's not normal. And even the military career, what we've done in the military and what we've done as police officers, it's not normal. You go to the cookouts, you go to maybe a spouse or a friend's house that they're not police or a former military, and who's asking, and no slight to anyone else's job, but what are they doing? Tell me a story. Tell me a story. To the point where some officers or military personnel just don't go to these cookouts anymore, because no one's asking the financial analyst about a portfolio. They want to hear a story from a first responder, whether it be police, fire, EMS, whatnot. And those stories aren't television. They're not from a television show. They're real life. They're dredging up things that have happened. So what we do from this point forward is not normal. We can't be compared to other people out there. Everyone's got their traumas. Everyone's trauma is different and should be respected. But what we do is not normal. And we need to realize from the day we sat in front of our chief of police and told them, hey, we want to help people. We're here to help people. The things we've seen and done, whether it's 20 years, whether it's 2 years, it shapes us and it changes us.
And I'm going to steal this from Brene Brown. So it's the power of vulnerability. And you guys have shown that today in what you're talking about. And there is so much power if we let ourselves go through, loss, grief, shame, the power that you get back when you feel like you're not in control, because there are things that are going on or have gone on in the past. It's a real strength to be able to do that. And I know for me personally, being able to look inward and recognize, one, that I'm not alone, and two, that if I just open myself up to what's going on and I share that with another person, whether that is in a clinical environment, whether that is in, a non-clinical environment, my neighbor next door, wherever it's appropriate, right? And I'm going to use, wherever it's safe, Cool Whip, wherever it's a safe space to do that, that there's a lot of power that comes from that.
And also for the safe space, I can't stand that. This is America, freedom. That's what I believe in.